Look around you. Everyone you've ever met, everyone you've ever heard of, from the person next to you to the names in history books. They all have one thing in common: they are going to die. You are going to die. I am going to die. There's a strange kind of freedom in saying that out loud, isn't there? For all our differences, our ambitions, our drama, our pride, the great equalizer humbles us all the same. You see, nature doesn't play favorites. It doesn't care how famous you are, how many followers you have, or what title you carry before your name. Death arrives, eventually, with the same quiet finality for emperors and beggars alike. Illness doesn't consult your ransom before showing up. Aging doesn't slow down for the rich or the beautiful. Tragedy doesn't avoid those who are exceptional. There is no VIP line out of suffering. There is no backstage pass beyond the basic conditions of being human. People try to hide from this. They dress it up, cover it with achievements, distract themselves with noise and attention. They build entire identities around the illusion that they're somehow exempt, that they're too important for misjudgment, too smart for failure, too successful for sadness. But life is a master of stripping down those illusions, patiently, relentlessly. And the more you cling to the fantasy of being special, the harder the fall when reality a few you're just like everyone else. But that's not a sentence. That's a kind of liberation. Because if no one is truly special in the cosmos, the pressure is off. You don't need to chase some imaginary greatness to validate your existence. You don't need to prove you're better than the next person to matter. You're already standing on the same ground they are. You already have what they have. A brief moment in time, a body that breathes and breaks, a mind that can choose how to respond. All of us are dealt the same fundamental cards. Some hands seem better than others, sure. Some are born into privilege, some into pain. But eventually, every hand folds. The clock runs out on everyone. So what matters isn't how special your cards look. What matters is how you play them. That's the arena where your character is revealed. That's where meaning is found. I've watched powerful men crumble under the weight of their own egos. I've seen those who thought in those untouchable reduced to pleading for mercy from fate. I've seen glory disappear overnight and status evaporate in a whisper. And yet, I've also seen quiet, ordinary people face hardship with a strength that would put kings to shame. Not because they were special, but because they understood they didn't have to be. When you realize you're not immune to what befalls everyone else, you stop asking, why me? And sigh, why not me? You stop demanding an explanation for every setback and start preparing for them. You stop wasting energy comparing yourself to others, because now you see, we're all just passing through. Some of us will do it with grace. Some won't, but none of us will do it forever. So don't get caught up in the nonsense of being unique, of being extraordinary. The people who do that are usually compensating for something. They're afraid of being average, afraid of being forgotten, afraid of being no one. But being no one, in the grand scheme, is the truth of our condition. And there is nothing shameful about that. It's honest, it's clean, it's real. The stars don't brag about how bright they are. They shine because that's their nature. You don't need a spotlight to matter. You need to live rightly, even if no one sees it. There's this quiet dignity that comes from accepting your place in the order of things. Not above, not below, just in it. A part of the same cycle, the same breath, the same dust. When you see that clearly, arrogance becomes laughable, entitlement becomes childish. Suddenly, you realize we're all passengers on the same ship, headed to the same shore. And when that realization really sinks in, you start to live differently. You become less interested in admiration and more invested in honesty. Less focused on standing out and more focused on standing firm. You begin to understand that your worth is measured by how different you are. It's measured by how you carry yourself while facing the same storms everyone else must endure. This is not a punishment. It's a pate. Walk it with your eyes open. Walk it with humility. Because in the end, when the last breath leaves your body, the universe won't ask if you were special. It will ask if you were true. Let me tell you what really stands in your way. It's not the world. It's not other people. It's not even bad luck. It's your own ego. That voice in your head that says you deserve more, that you're meant for something greater, that you shouldn't have to struggle like the rest. That's the enemy. That's the source of most of your frustration, your disappointment, your anxiety. It's the part of you that believes you're the exception, not the rule. That you're special. That life owes you something. But life doesn't owe you anything. Ego whispers that you're too good for this job, too talented to be overlooked, too important to be treated this way. It tells you that you're different from the rest, that the rules don't apply to you. And when life fails to match that fantasy, ego throws a fit. It sulks. It blames others. It either collapses into bitterness or lashes out in pride. That's how ego operates, always hungry, always insecure, always needing more. Now look, confidence is good. It's necessary. But confidence is earned. Ego is assumed. Confidence says, I can handle this. Ego says, I can have. Consequence works quietly. Ego wants to be seen. Ego wants applause. Ego wants to be special. But let's be honest. How many people have been destroyed chasing that applause? How many have lost themselves in the pursuit of being important? I've seen men who ruled nations still crave the validation of lesser men. I've seen the so-called wise chase fame like children chasing shadows. I've seen leaders blinded by their own pride, unable to hear the truth because it didn't flatter them. And every single time, ego was the root, not the situation, not the people around them. Ego. The problem with ego is that it builds your identity on things you don't control. It says, I'm great because I've achieved this. I've earned that. I've been recognized. But what happens when those things go away? What happens when the applause stops? When the success fades? When someone younger, faster, smarter comes along? If your sense of self is built on being special, it collapses the moment life reminds you that you're not. And life will remind you. So if you want peace, you've got to starve the ego. You've got to let go of the idea that you're above struggle, above criticism, above others. The ego wants to be worshipped, but the wise person, the truly free person, doesn't need to be worshipped. They need only to be grounded, solid, humble, focused. That's where real power lies. Because when you drop the ego, you're no longer fragile. You're not shaken by failure because you know failure doesn't define you. You're not seduced by praise because you see it for what it is. Temporary, unreliable, often meaningless. With ego, you don't need to be the best. You just need to be better than you were yesterday. You stop chasing validation and start chasing truth. And the truth is, you're not that important. That's not an insult. That's a gift. When you stop pretending to be more than you are, you're free to be who you actually are. You're free to grow, free to learn, free to face the reality of your flaws and fix them instead of hiding behind the illusion of being enough. Ego resists correction. It resists growth. It would rather lie to you than let you feel small. But here's the thing. You are small. So am I. We're all small in the face of time, of the universe, of nature. But small doesn't mean insignificant. It means we've got room to expand. It means we have space to learn, to serve, to improve. The goal isn't to become someone impressive. It's to become someone useful, not someone admired, but someone dependable. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You need to be the one who listens. You don't need to be the hero in every story. You need to be honest in yours. So let the ego go. Let it scream, let it panic, let it try to claw its way back into control. And then ignore it. Replace it with discipline, with service, with curiosity, with the simple willingness to face what's in front of you without demanding that the world bend to your image of who you think you are. That's where strength lies, not in the ego's illusion of power, but in the reality of restraint, in humility, in clarity, in the refusal to be ruled by the need to feel special. Because once you stop needing to be someone, you finally become someone worth being. People get offended when they're word replaceable, as if it's an insult, as if being one of many somehow makes their life less meaningful. But I want to tell you the opposite is true. The fact that we're all replaceable, that the world goes on without us, is not depressing. It's not something to fear. A thing to free yourself with. Think about it. How many people have walked this earth before you? How many names have been spoken of reverence, only to fade into dust a generation or two later? How many important people have been buried with titles and honors, while the world barely paused for a breath before carrying on? You, me, all of us, we are part of a long, endless stream of people who came and went. Some were remembered for a while, most weren't. And yet life didn't stop. The seasons kept turning. The sun rose next day. This is not cause for despair. This is clarity. When you realize you're replaceable, you stop trying to force the world revolve around you. You stop needing to be the center of attention, the most impressive, the one who can't be lived without. You begin to understand something much deeper, that your value doesn't come from being irreplaceable. It comes from what you choose to give while you're here. Ego wants to believe you're the only one who can do it. Only you can solve the problem. Only you can lead the project, save the company, inspire the people. But the truth is, someone else can do it. Maybe not exactly like you, maybe better, maybe worse, but someone will, and that's okay, because the goal is not to be the only one. The goal is to do it well while it's your turn. You see, when you cling to the fantasy via feeble, you live with fear. Fear of being replaced, fear of being forgotten, fear of not mattering. That fear makes you defensive. It makes you possessive. You start guarding your spot like a throne, instead of using it like a platform to serve others. And eventually, the same fear would protect you ends up suffocating you. But when you let go of that fear, when you embrace the truth that yes, someday someone else will sit in your seat, everything shifts. You start asking better questions. Instead of, how do I make sure they remember me? You ask, how can I make the most of this moment? Instead of, how do I protect my legacy? You ask, what can I contribute, even if no one ever knows it was me? That shift is everything. I've seen warriors who died nameless in battle, never praised, never honored, and yet they fought with more courage than generals. I've seen laborers who toiled in silence, never famous, never rich, yet they fed families, lifters, built legacies through action, not ego. They didn't need statues, they needed meaning, and they found it in simply doing what needed to be done. You don't need to be remembered forever. You need to live rightly today. You don't need to leave your mark. You need to leave things better than you found them. You don't need to be irreplaceable. You need to be present. Because the freedom of knowing you'll be replaced is that it humbles you enough to focus on what matters. It reminds you that life is not a performance, it's a participation. It's not about leaving people in awe of who you were. It's about making things better while you're here, quietly, honestly, without the need to be celebrated. It's also a relief. Think about how heavy it is to carry the pressure of being the one, the best, the only. That weight breaks people. That illusion breeds them to compromise their values just to hold on to their image. But when you drop that illusion, suddenly you can breathe. You can rest, you can learn, you can make mistakes, you can be human again. And isn't that what we're here to be? Not gods, not legends, just people. People their part, then step aside when it's time, without bitterness, without clinging. The river flows, and we are each just a drop. But even a drop reflects the sky when it's clear enough. Even a moment, lived fully, without ego, can carry more meaning than a lifetime spent chasing immortality. So don't fear being replaced. Fear not using your time well. Fear never showing up fully because you were too busy trying to stand out. Fear wasting the moment by trying to be more than what you are. You're here now, that's enough. Be here, do your part, and then let go. Every day, we wake up surrounded by noise. The world is loud, opinions flying at us from every direction, headlines trying to stir our emotions, people doing things we can't understand, saying things we don't agree with. And the temptation is always the same: to get pulled into it, to react, to try and control it all. But here's the truth: you can't. You don't control what other people say. You don't control how they think. You don't control the economy, the weather, the news, the timing, the outcome. You don't even control most of what happens in your own body. One accident, one illness, and suddenly your plans, your pride, your sense of control, gone. And yet we spend so much energy trying to fix what's not ours to fix. We obsess over outcomes, over recognition, over what people think of us. We try to manipulate, argue, force, predict. We tie our happiness to things we can't command. And then we wonder why we feel exhausted, anxious, and lost. But you have a choice. You can step back. You can focus on what's actually yours: your thoughts, your choices, your responses, your effort. That's it. That's the whole list. That's where your power begins and ends. It's not flashy. It doesn't come with a round of applause, but it's real, solid, untouchable. You can't control whether the world gives you peace, but you can control whether you carry peace within you. You can't force people to respect you, but you can act in a way that respects yourself. You can't stop the storm, but you can choose how you stand in the rain. And that choice is everything, because when you lock in on what's truly under your control, the noise fades. The chaos around you might still be there, but it no longer owns you. You become centered, calm, steady. Not because life got easier, but because you stopped trying to wrestle with the wind. I've seen people with nothing, no money, no status, no audience, walk with more dignity than kings. Why? Because they knew where their control ended and where acceptance began. They knew that effort, discipline, and character were theirs to shape. The rest, let it come, let it go. They weren't attached to results. They were committed to the process. On the other hand, I've watched powerful men destroy themselves chasing what they couldn't hold. They wanted guarantees. They wanted certainty. They wanted control over things that were never theirs. And when life didn't bend to their demands, they collapsed, bitter, angry, broken. But life isn't personal. It doesn't conspire against you. It simply is. And it doesn't need to obey you for you to be okay. It doesn't need to make sense for you to find peace. What matters is how you show up, how you carry yourself when the plan falls apart, when people disappoint you, when nothing goes your way. Do you fall apart with it? Or do you stay rooted in what's yours? You can still do your best even if the world doesn't notice. You can still speak the truth even if no one listens. You can still be kind, disciplined, honest, even in a world that rewards the opposite. That's the strength that matters. Quiet, invisible, inner strength. The kind that doesn't need praise to exist. The kind that doesn't depend on the world behaving. When you truly accept what's in your control, you free yourself. You stop clinging. You stop blaming. You stop begging life to cooperate. Instead, you start living fully, honestly in the moment. You don't waste time fighting the current. You learn to swim in it. You stop asking the world to change and start asking yourself, what can I do with what I have right now? That question, not what if, not why me, not when will things get better, but what can I do right now with what's in front of me? That's where your life changes. That's where clarity lives. It's not always easy. In fact, it rarely is. You'll want to react, to control, to rage against what you can't influence. But that's the discipline. Pulling yourself back to what's yours, owning it, mastering it, and letting the rest pass by like clouds in the sky. You'll be tempted to control outcomes. But outcomes aren't promises, only your effort is. You'll want to control how people see you. But that's their lens, not yours. What you do, how you show up when no one is watching, that's the part that matters. That's what you get to control. And once you make that shift, everything gets lighter. You don't need the world to change. You just need to do your part cleanly, quietly, consistently. Let the rest go. We live in a world obsessed with distinction, with being different, being noticed, standing out. People chase titles, awards, and attention like it's the finish line of life. They want to be seen. They want to be celebrated. They want to be remembered. But here's the truth. None of that defines you. Not really. What defines you is your duty. What you show up for when no one's watching. What you carry out simply because it's right. You're not here to impress. You're here to serve. The problem is that the world tells you the opposite. It feeds you the idea that your worth is in being exceptional, that you matter more if you've done something no one else has, if you've earned some badge of uniqueness. But that belief will rot your soul, because when you measure yourself by how different you are, you'll always be comparing, always insecure, always looking over your shoulder to make sure you still stand above the crowd. But duty doesn't ask for any of that. Duty doesn't care if you're famous or forgotten. It just asks, will you do what needs to be done? That's it. No spotlight, no round of applause, no likes, no retweets. Just the quiet, simple task of showing up, fully, completely, every day, even when it's hard, even when it's thankless, even when it feels like no one notices. And most of the time, no one will. The janitor sweeping the floor after everyone's gone, that's duty. The soldier standing watch while others sleep, that's duty. The mother holding her family together with quiet strength. No parade, no platform, just love and consistency, that's duty. These are the people who carry the world. Not because they're chasing attention, but because they're honoring responsibility. Look around and ask yourself, who do you actually trust? Who do you admire deep down? It's not the loudest, most decorated, most distinctive. It's the ones who keep showing up, the ones who do the right thing even when no one's clapping. That's what earns real respect. That's what lasts. And here's the part most people miss: duty is not glamorous. It's repetitive. It's quiet. It's full of small, ordinary moments. The discipline to do your job without needing praise. The courage to hold your ground without needing credit. The humility to serve without being seen. It might not get you a headline, but it will build your character. And character is the one thing no one can take from you. Not time, not circumstance, not failure. Distinction fades. Fame is fragile. Your title can be stripped, your accomplishments forgotten. But your actions, the way you carry yourself, the way you serve, the way you uphold your duty, that's the real legacy. That's the part that matters. And make no mistake, your duty is not always some grand task. Sometimes your duty is simply to stay kind in a world that rewards cruelty. To tell the truth when a lie would be easier. To keep going when every part of you wants to quit. To honor your commitments. To help when it's inconvenient. To be patient when no one else is. That's strength. not being recognized, but being reliable, not being impressive, but being consistent. You don't need to be great in the eyes of the world. You need to be good in the quiet moments. That's where the real test is. When no one's watching, when there's nothing to gain. When it's just you and the question, will you do what's right? You see, the world doesn't need more people chasing distinction. It needs more people who are loyal to their duty. People who are stable when things shake. People who are humble enough to serve without needing a spotlight. People who understand that doing the work, honestly, diligently, fully, is more valuable than being seen doing it. That's where peace comes from. That's where meaning lives. Not in trying to be someone, but in doing what needs to be done, again and again, because that's who you are. Forget being special, be solid. Forget being different, be dependable. Forget being known, be needed. The rest takes care of itself.